The unexpected candidate. The crystalline spires of the Galactic Military Institute pierced the purple sky of Centauri Prime like luminescent daggers, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 moons. Private Kira Puddle stood at the base of the main tower, her breath fogging the inside of her environment suit visor as she stared upward. The acceptance rate to the Institute's Stellar Command program was 0.1% across all species. She was the first human to ever receive an invitation. Specimen contamination detected at entrance point Lambda, announced an automated voice in 6 different languages. A decontamination field sparkled around Kira's suit, and she heard distinct sounds of disgust from the group of Arcturian cadets passing by, their crystalline bodies shifting colors in apparent revulsion. They're letting organics with single helix DNA enroll now. One of them broadcasted telepathically, not bothering to shield the thought. How quaint. I didn't realize the Institute had started a charity program. Kira kept her expression neutral as she stepped through the entrance. She'd expected this reaction. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Alliance 3 years ago, and most advanced species viewed them as barely evolved primates who had stumbled onto faster-than-light travel by accident. The main atrium bustled with activity as new cadets arrived for the training cycle. Floating Etherians drifted by like luminous clouds, while towering Nexulons strode past on legs of pure energy. A group of mechanids rolled through on quantum wheels, their artificial intelligence cores humming with calculations. "Welcome, cadet." A holographic administrator materialized before Kira, its matrix flickering as it processed her information. Patel, Kira. Species, human. Enhancement level, none. Cybernetic integration, none. Psionic rating, none. The hologram paused. Is this data correct? It seems to be missing several crucial capabilities. The data is correct, Kira replied, keeping her voice steady. Baseline human. The hologram flickered again. Unprecedented. Please proceed to Orientation Chamber Delta. Be advised that all non-enhanced beings must maintain Class 2 environmental protection at all times. As Kira made her way through the crowded corridors, she caught fragments of conversations in dozens of languages, her universal translator working overtime to keep up. Most of them centered on her presence. Did you see? They admitted a Type 7 organic. How will it even interface with the quantum training matrices? I heard they still use verbal communication as their primary mode of information exchange. This has to be some kind of diplomatic gesture to the primitive sectors. The orientation chamber turned out to be a vast amphitheater with seats designed to accommodate everything from gaseous beings to silicon-based life forms. Kira found a section marked for humanoid species and sat down, trying to ignore the empty seats that immediately appeared around her as other cadets chose to sit elsewhere. Attention. The voice filled the chamber, accompanied by a holographic display of Commander Zixtal, the Institute's legendary director. His form shifted between states of matter as he spoke, a typical display of transmutant mastery. You represent the finest your species have to offer. Over the next solar cycle, you will be trained in advanced tactical operations, quantum warfare, and multi-dimensional strategy. Only the best will graduate to join the ranks of Stellar Command. The commander's gaze seemed to fix directly on Kira. Some of you come from species that have been part of the Alliance for millennia. Others. A ripple of amusement passed through the chamber. Others represent new potential we have yet to fully understand. Remember, the galaxy is ever evolving. Today's primitive species might be tomorrow's saviors. Kira felt her cheeks burn at the obvious reference, but kept her focus forward. She'd earned her place here, regardless of what anyone thought. Her test scores in tactical simulation and crisis response had broken records, even if she'd achieved them through primitive human cognitive processes. The first test came sooner than expected. As cadets filed out of orientation, a Nexulon deliberately phased their energy leg through her path. Most species would have sensed the energy disruption and stepped aside. Without enhanced perception, Kira walked right into it. The shock sent her stumbling, but years of Zerog training kicked in. She rolled with the fall, came up in a defensive stance, and found herself facing a ring of amused alien faces. Oh dear, the Nexulon's energy form pulsed with false concern. I forgot that non-enhanced beings can't perceive quantum field disruptions. How will you manage the tactical training, I wonder? Perhaps they have some kind of remedial program for special cases. I manage just fine, Kira replied, straightening her suit. Though I notice you had to resort to physical interference rather than beat me in actual tactical exercises. Interesting strategy. The Nexulon's energy form flared with anger, but before they could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. Cadet Patel, a moment of your time. Lieutenant Commander Rix, a crystalline whose transparent form contained swirling galaxies, stood in a nearby doorway. As Kira's direct supervisor, they were responsible for evaluating her performance during the training cycle. Sir, Kira saluted, grateful for the interruption. Once they were alone in Rix's office, the commander's form shifted to a more approachable configuration. I reviewed your entrance exam results again. Particularly interesting was your solution to the Kobashi labyrinth. The impossible maze scenario, sir. Indeed, every species approaches it differently. Etherians try to phase through the walls. Mechanids attempt to calculate every possible path. Transmutants try to reshape reality itself. Rix's crystalline form sparkled with curiosity. You were the first to realize it wasn't actually a maze. Kira nodded. The walls were projections. The real test was recognizing that the obvious path was an illusion. Precisely. While other species relied on their advanced capabilities, you used something far more basic: observation and logical deduction. Rix paused. You will face unprecedented challenges here, Cadet. Many will doubt you. Some will actively work against you. But remember this: sometimes the simplest solution is the most elegant. As Kira left the office, she felt slightly more confident. She might not have quantum computing in her brain or the ability to manipulate reality, but humans had something that even the most advanced species sometimes forgot: the ability to see past complexity to find simple truths. A message flashed across her suit's heads-up display. Report to Training Bay Alpha. First evaluation begins in 10 minutes. Squaring her shoulders, Kira headed toward her first real test at the Institute. Let them underestimate her. Humanity had spent its entire history proving others wrong about their limitations. It was time to do it again. Breaking point. Training Bay Alpha resembled a massive geodesic sphere, its surfaces composed of quantum-shifting panels that could reconfigure into any tactical scenario imaginable. Kira stood with her fellow cadets, trying not to feel conspicuous in her environmental suit among beings who could survive in virtually any conditions. Today's exercise, announced Senior Instructor Vex, their energy form crackling with barely contained power, is the Schrödinger scenario. You must complete the mission without knowing if your choices in one quantum reality affect all possible outcomes. Kira's heart sank. The exercise was notorious for requiring multi-dimensional thinking and quantum state perception, abilities humans distinctly lacked. Around her, she could sense other cadets' amusement at her presumed disadvantage. Teams of 4, Vex continued. Randomized selection. The quantum computer paired Kira with a Nexulon named Zara, whose energy legs still sparked from their earlier encounter, a Mechanid designated Unit 359, and an Etherian called Mist. None of them looked pleased with the arrangement. This should be interesting. Zara's voice crackled with electrical amusement. Try not to get quantum locked. Organic. I hear it's quite unpleasant for single-state beings. The simulation began without warning. The training bay transformed into a massive space station, trapped in quantum flux. Multiple versions of reality overlapped, creating a dizzying array of possibilities. While her teammates perceived all quantum states simultaneously, Kira could only see one version at a time, forcing her to rely on her suit's basic sensors. 3 quantum bombs detected, Unit 359 announced. Each exists in 5 possible states. Calculating optimal approach vectors. I'll phase through the quantum barriers, Mist suggested, their ethereal form already spreading thin. The human can. Wait here. No. Kira's voice was firm. We need to coordinate. Each bomb is linked. I can see the pattern in the energy fluctuations. Impossible, Zara scoffed. You can't even perceive quantum states. I don't need to, Kira replied, studying her suit's readings. Look at the classical physics markers. The bombs are creating interference patterns in normal space. They're leaving footprints we can follow. Her teammates paused, surprised by this perspective. While they had been focusing on quantum mechanics, they'd overlooked the basic physical evidence that even primitive sensors could detect. Interesting observation, Unit 359 acknowledge. But the quantum barriers are shifting in a predictable sequence. Kira interrupted. They're not random. It's like a combination lock. We don't need to perceive all states at once if we can predict when each barrier will materialize. Despite their initial skepticism, her teammates found themselves following Kira's lead. She couldn't phase through walls or exist in multiple states, but she could read patterns and anticipate changes. It was how humanity had survived before they developed advanced technology, by observing, adapting, and planning. The first bomb was secured through careful timing and coordination. The second required them to split up, with Kira guiding her teammates through the quantum maze using the classical physics patterns she'd identified. But the third bomb presented an unexpected challenge. Quantum cascade imminent, Unit 359 warned. All realities will collapse in 30 seconds. Kira saw Mist attempt to phase through the final barrier, only to be thrown back by an unexpected energy surge. Zara's attempt to transmit their energy form through the quantum field failed similarly. It's a trap, Kira realized. The quantum complexity is a distraction. The solution has to be simpler. While her teammates attempted increasingly complex quantum manipulations, Kira noticed something they'd overlooked. A maintenance shaft, existing in all quantum states simultaneously because it was essential to the station's basic structure. Cover me, she ordered, already moving. Her teammates watched in confusion as she manually opened the shaft's access panel. No quantum mechanics required. This is foolish, Zara called after her. You'll be quantum shredded. But Kira understood something her advanced teammates didn't. Sometimes the most reliable path was the most basic one. She crawled through the shaft, relying on her suit's simple sensors and human instincts. When she reached the bomb, she found exactly what she'd suspected, an override panel designed for emergency maintenance, functional regardless of quantum state. The simulation dissolved just as Kira input the shutdown code. Training Bay Alpha reappeared, and with it, the surprised faces of her fellow cadets and instructors. Unprecedented approach, Instructor Vex noted, their energy form flickering with what might have been approval. While others attempted to master quantum chaos, you found order in classical physics. Unorthodox, but effective. Kira's teammates regarded her with newfound curiosity. They had expected her human limitations to be a liability, but instead, they had provided a unique perspective that led to success. How did you know? Mist asked as they left the training bay. About the maintenance shaft. Because every space station, no matter how advanced, needs basic maintenance access, Kira explained. Some things are so fundamental they exist in every quantum reality. Sometimes the simplest solution is the most reliable. Word of the training session's outcome spread quickly through the Institute. While some dismissed it as luck, others began to wonder if there might be value in what they had previously seen as primitive human thinking. That evening, Kira received a message from Lieutenant Commander Rix. Well done, Cadet. You've demonstrated that different perspectives aren't just valuable, they're essential. But be prepared. Success often invites greater challenges. As if to prove Rix's warning, Kira's suit display lit up with her next assignment. Report to Deep Space Training Module tomorrow at 500. Extended survival exercise. No quantum assistance permitted. Some of her fellow cadets might have seen this as punishment, but Kira smiled. No quantum assistance meant no advantages for advanced species. It would be just their basic abilities against the void of space. Finally, a level playing field. The hidden strength. The deep space training module hung against the void like a dark pearl, its surface barely reflecting the light of distant stars. Kira and 11 other cadets stood in the airlock chamber, preparing for what the Institute called primitive conditions survival training. The exercise was meant to simulate worst-case scenarios where advanced technology failed, leaving them with only basic survival tools. Remember, Instructor Vex's voice crackled through their comms. No quantum manipulation, no reality shifting, no dimensional phasing. Only basic propulsion and life support systems are permitted. Zara's energy form flickered with annoyance. This is absurd. When would advanced beings ever need to operate at such a primitive level? When everything else fails, Kira muttered, checking her suit seals with practiced efficiency. After last week's quantum training success, some of her fellow cadets had begun to view her with curiosity rather than pure contempt. But others, like Zara, seemed even more determined to prove human inadequacy. The airlock cycled open, exposing them to the void, while other cadets struggled with their suddenly limited capabilities. Kira moved with confidence. This was how humans had first ventured into space. No quantum shields, no reality buffers, just skill, training, and determination. Their objective was to navigate a debris field to reach a disabled satellite, retrieve its data core, and return. Simple in theory, but the debris field was dense and unpredictable. Without their usual abilities, many cadets found themselves disoriented in the three-dimensional chaos. Kira observed their movements, noting how they instinctively tried to use their now disabled advanced capabilities. The Etherian cadets kept attempting to phase through debris, only to bounce off. The mechanids' quantum calculations proved useless without their advanced processors. Even the Nexulons struggled, their energy forms constrained by basic containment suits. She was about to offer some suggestions when her suit's sensors picked up something odd. A faint energy signature that shouldn't have been there. The pattern seemed familiar, reminding her of something she'd seen in the quantum training exercise, but that should have been impossible in this tech-limited environment. Before she could investigate further, a cry of alarm cut through the comm channel. One of the Etherians, trying to navigate between two large debris pieces, had miscalculated. Their containment suit was damaged, and they were beginning to dissipate into space. Without their quantum abilities, none of the other cadets could reach them in time. But Kira had trained for this kind of rescue in Earth's space program. She fired her suit's manual thrusters, using the debris itself to redirect her momentum. Years of practicing zeroed maneuvering without advanced assistance paid off as she caught the Etherian just before they could completely dissolve. "Hold still," she instructed, pulling out her suit's patch kit. "This isn't elegant, but it'll keep you contained until we get back." The Etherian's voice was weak but amazed. How did you calculate the trajectory without quantum computing?" "I didn't," Kira replied, applying the patch. "Humans learn to do this through practice and intuition. Sometimes the organic computer up here," she tapped her helmet, "works better than artificial ones." As she helped the Etherian back to stable space, Kira kept thinking about that strange energy signature. Something about it nagged at her instincts. The same instincts that had helped her spot the pattern in the quantum bomb exercise. The rest of the training proceeded without major incident, though Kira noticed more anomalous readings whenever they passed certain sections of the debris field. She kept her observations to herself for now, but her mind was racing with possibilities. Back in the Institute, Lieutenant Commander Rix was waiting for them. Their crystalline form shifted with interest as they reviewed the exercise results. "Impressive performance, Cadet Patel. You seem most capable when others are most limited. An interesting paradox." "Sir," Kira hesitated, then pressed on. "During the exercise, I detected some unusual energy patterns in the debris field. They resembled quantum signatures, but that should have been impossible with all advanced tech disabled. Rix's form stilled, crystals freezing in place. Impossible indeed. Unless someone was operating quantum tech outside the exercise parameters, Kira finished. And if they were hidden well enough that only basic sensors could detect them, they might be invisible to the Institute's advanced scanning systems. An interesting theory, Rix said carefully. Though I'm curious why you think basic sensors would detect something our quantum arrays miss. Because sometimes the most sophisticated systems overcomplicate things, Kira explained. They look for complex patterns and miss simple ones. It's like how I found the maintenance shaft in the quantum exercise. Sometimes the basic solution reveals what advanced technology overlooks. Rick studied her for a long moment. Continue monitoring these anomalies, Cadet, but do so discreetly. If there is something hidden in our systems, we wouldn't want to alert them that they've been detected. As Kira left Rick's office, she found Zora waiting outside. The Nexulon's energy form was subdued, lacking its usual arrogant crackle. That rescue today, Zora said awkwardly. It was competent. For primitive techniques, coming from a Nexulon, this was practically effusive praise. Thanks, Kira replied. Maybe there's something to be said for primitive techniques after all. Perhaps, Zora admitted. Though I still don't understand how you navigate without quantum perception. It seems so limiting. Humans learn to navigate by understanding our limitations, Kira explained. Sometimes limitations can be strengths. They force you to notice things others might miss. Like energy signatures that shouldn't exist, she thought but didn't say. As she headed to her quarters, Kira's mind was already working on the puzzle. Someone was operating unauthorized quantum tech in the Institute, hidden from advanced detection systems, but visible to basic sensors. The question was, why? Her suit's display lit up with the next day's assignment. Advanced Quantum Integration Protocols. Kira smiled grimly. Perfect. What better place to look for quantum anomalies than in the heart of the Institute's quantum systems? She had a feeling she was about to discover just how deep this mystery went. Crisis point. The quantum integration chamber hummed with barely contained power, its walls rippling with mathematical equations that seemed to fold in on themselves. Kira stood at a basic interface terminal while her classmates connected directly to the quantum matrix, their consciousness merging with the Institute's systems. Still insisting on manual input, Cadet Patel. Instructor Vex asked, their energy form shifting with what might have been concern. These exercises are designed for direct neural interface. I work better with hands-on controls, sir, Kira replied, fingers moving across the holographic display. She didn't mention that she was running a passive scan for the anomalous energy signatures she detected during the space exercise. The basic sensors in her environmental suit were perfect for the task, too primitive to trigger any advanced detection systems. The day's assignment involved mapping quantum pathways through the Institute's processing core. As her classmates dove deep into the quantum realm, Kira kept one eye on her scan results. The anomalies were definitely there, pulsing beneath the normal quantum traffic like a hidden heartbeat. Fascinating approach, Unit 359 commented, their mechanical form hovering nearby. Since the space rescue, the mechanid had taken to observing her methods with genuine interest. You're treating quantum pathways like physical routes. Because they are, in a way, Kira explained, tracking a particularly suspicious signal pattern. Energy follows paths of least resistance, even in quantum space. The principles don't change just because the scale does. Suddenly, her scanner lit up with alerts. The anomalous signals were intensifying, converging on something deep in the quantum core. At the same moment, she noticed a subtle shift in the equations flowing across the walls, a tiny irregularity that her human brain, trained to spot patterns, couldn't miss. Something's wrong, she announced, just as the chamber's lights flickered. The quantum pathways are being redirected. Impossible, Vex declared. The security protocols. The chamber plunged into darkness. When the emergency lights came on, Kira saw her classmates sprawled across the floor, their neural connections severed. The quantum equations on the walls had frozen, crystallizing into chaotic patterns. Neural interface failure, Unit 359 reported, their mechanical voice tinged with static. Unable to reconnect to quantum systems. All advanced functions offline. Kira's hands flew across her terminal, which was still functioning on its basic power supply. The quantum core is being drained. Something's siphoning power and processing capability, using the hidden pathways I detected. What hidden pathways? Vex demanded, their energy form fluctuating wildly as they tried to maintain coherence without quantum support. Our systems would have detected any unauthorized access. Not if it was hidden beneath your detection threshold, Kira explained, pulling up her scan data. The infiltration was too simple for advanced systems to notice, like hiding a whisper beneath a symphony. The chamber's doors slid open, revealing Lieutenant Commander Rix. Their crystalline form was clouded with concern. It's not just here. The entire Institute is losing quantum functionality. All advanced systems are failing. As if to confirm their words, a deep tremor ran through the station. Warning klaxons began to wail as artificial gravity fluctuated. Through the quantum glass windows, Kira could see other sections of the Institute going dark. The quantum core is approaching critical instability, Unit 359 announced, their mechanical systems struggling to maintain basic functions. Without advanced containment protocols, we need to shut it down, Kira interrupted, her mind racing. All of it, the whole quantum network. That's suicide, Zora protested, their energy form barely visible without quantum support. The Institute can't function without quantum systems. It can't function if it explodes either, Kira countered. Those hidden pathways I found, they're not just stealing power, they're creating a feedback loop. The more the system tries to compensate, the worse it gets. Another tremor, stronger this time. Emergency force fields flickered and died. In the corridors outside, Kira could hear panic spreading as advanced beings found themselves cut off from their technological advantages. Even if you're right, Rick said, their crystalline form growing more opaque as quantum enhancement failed, a complete shutdown would strand thousands of beings who depend on quantum integration for basic functions. Many species here can't survive without their advanced systems. Kira's mind flashed back to the space exercise, to the Etherian she'd saved with nothing but a patch kit and quick thinking. Then we helped them adapt. Humans have been doing more with less for our entire history. Now it's time to teach others how. She turned to her classmates, who were picking themselves up from the floor, many struggling with their suddenly limited capabilities. Unit 359. You can network with the basic emergency systems. We need evacuation protocols that don't rely on quantum tech. Zara, your energy form may be weakened, but you can still transmit emergency signals on primitive frequencies. Mist, your phase shifting might not work, but you're still more mobile than most. We need scouts to find anyone who's trapped. To her surprise, they responded to her authority without question. Perhaps they recognized that this was exactly the kind of situation where human experience with primitive technology was most valuable. Commander Rix, Kira continued, I need access to the maintenance systems, the same kind I used in the quantum bomb exercise. If we can't shut down the core through quantum protocols, we'll have to do it manually. Access granted, Rix replied, their crystalline form hardening with determination. But Cadet, if you're wrong about this. I'm not, Kira said with conviction. Sometimes the most advanced solution is the problem. Right now, we don't need quantum computing or neural interfaces. We need something simpler. Something that works even when everything else fails. As her teammates dispersed to their assigned tasks, Kira pulled up the Institute's basic structural schematics on her suit's display. Somewhere in this labyrinth of maintenance tunnels and emergency systems was a path to the quantum core, and like every path she'd faced before, she would find it. The Institute shuddered again, more violently this time. Through her suit's sensors, Kira could see the quantum feedback loop accelerating. They had minutes, maybe less, before the core went critical. Time to show everyone what humans do best, she muttered, stepping into the darkness of a maintenance shaft. Surviving when all the advanced options fail. Behind her, the quantum equations on the chamber walls shattered like broken glass, raining down in a cascade of failed mathematical certainties. Ahead lay only uncertainty and hope. Evolution of understanding. The maintenance shaft was barely wide enough for Kira's environmental suit as she crawled through the Institute's skeletal framework. Her suit's basic sensors painted a grim picture. The quantum core's containment was failing faster than predicted, its energy bleeding into surrounding spacetime. Status report. She commanded through the emergency comm channel. She'd helped Unit 359 establish. Evacuation proceeding at 60% efficiency. The mechanid responded, their voice crackling with interference. Many higher evolution species are struggling without quantum assistance. Zara and Mist are organizing rescue teams, but we're running out of time. Commander Rakes, Kira called, reaching a junction in the maintenance tunnels. Core containment at 18% and falling. The crystalline's voice was strained. We've identified the source of the quantum drain. It appears to be an ancient program, buried in the Institute's original systems. Some kind of dormant quantum virus, evolving slowly beneath our detection threshold. Like a computer virus from Earth's early digital age, Kira muttered, choosing her path. Hidden in plain sight, because it was too simple for advanced systems to notice. A violent tremor shook the maintenance shaft. Warning lights pulsed red as emergency systems reported multiple hull breaches. The Institute's quantum-reinforced structure was beginning to fail without its advanced support systems. Cadet Patel, Instructor Vex's voice, joined the channel, their usual confidence replaced by genuine concern. The virus appears to be using our own quantum defenses against us. The more processing power we dedicate to containing it, the stronger it becomes. Because you're fighting quantum with quantum, Kira replied, reaching another junction. Her suit's sensors detected intense energy readings ahead. She was getting close to the core. You're playing by its rules. We need to change the game. She emerged into a vast circular chamber dominated by the quantum core. A writhing mass of pure computational energy, its surface crackling with mathematical chaos. Emergency force fields flickered weakly, barely containing the destructive potential within. I'm at the core, she announced, and I think I know what we need to do. But I'll need everyone's help and trust. There was a moment of silence on the comm channel. Then Zara spoke, their energy form audible even through the static. What do you need, human? Kira smiled. How far they'd come from those first days of mockery and doubt. The virus is using quantum complexity against us, so we do the opposite. We go simple, primitive. We shut down every quantum system simultaneously and reboot from basic protocols. That's insane, someone protested. The power surge from an uncontrolled shutdown would be contained. Kira interrupted. By the same maintenance systems that have kept this station running beneath all its quantum enhancements. The systems everyone forgot about because they were too basic to matter. And the virus? Rix asked. Can't survive without quantum systems to infect. Like any parasite, it needs its host. Kira's fingers flew across her suit's basic interface, accessing maintenance protocols that hadn't been used in decades. But we'll need perfect timing. Everyone has to hit their shutdown commands simultaneously, or the surge will tear the station apart. One by one, her fellow cadets and instructors voiced their agreement. Even those who had once dismissed her as a primitive species now looked to her leadership. They had seen firsthand how valuable primitive thinking could be when advanced technology failed. On my mark, Kira commanded, watching the energy readings spike dangerously. 3, 2, 1. Now, across the Institute, thousands of quantum systems went dark. The core's swirling energy collapsed in on itself, then exploded outward in a wave of pure computational force. But Kira had planned for this. The maintenance systems she'd reactivated caught the surge, channeling it through physical conduits designed centuries ago by engineers who hadn't had quantum technology to rely on. For one terrifying moment, the Institute hung in darkness. Then, one by one, basic systems began to restart. Emergency lights, life support, artificial gravity. Not the advanced quantum versions, but their simple, reliable predecessors. Core containment stable. Unit 359 reported with something like awe in their mechanical voice. Virus eliminated. All basic systems functioning at optimal capacity. Quantum systems can be restored once we've completed a full security sweep, Rix added, their crystalline form gradually regaining its clarity. Though perhaps not all of them. Recent events have shown the value of maintaining certain primitive redundancies. In the days that followed, as the Institute slowly rebuilt its quantum infrastructure, something fundamental had changed. Species that had once looked down on primitive technology now studied basic engineering principles. Cadets who had relied entirely on advanced abilities learned to function without them. The divide between primitive and advanced began to blur as everyone recognized that true evolution meant maintaining multiple paths forward. Kira stood at the same window where she'd first viewed the Institute's crystalline spires, now darkened but unbroken. Lieutenant Commander Rix approached, their form shifting with new patterns of light. The Academy Board has reviewed recent events, they announced. They've decided to create a new training program, focusing on integrated technological approaches, combining quantum systems with basic engineering principles. They want you to help design it. Me? Kira turned in surprise. Who better? You've proven that being technologically primitive doesn't mean being primitive in thinking. Sometimes the oldest solutions are the most elegant. Rix paused, their crystalline surface rippling with amusement. Though I wouldn't use the word primitive in the course title. Kira laughed. How about foundational technologies? After all, even the most advanced quantum computer needs basic circuits to function. Indeed. Rix's form shifted thoughtfully. You know, when you first arrived, many thought accepting humans into the Institute was a political gesture, a way to make less advanced species feel included. Now they understand it was about survival. Every civilization reaches points where its advanced technology becomes a vulnerability. When that happens, you need people who remember how to do things the simple way. Nothing simple about surviving, Kira replied, watching distant ships approach the Healing Institute. Humans just had more practice at it than most. As new cadets began arriving, including, she noticed, more representatives from primitive species, Kira reflected on how far they'd all come. The Institute had evolved, not by becoming more advanced, but by remembering the value of all levels of technology. And humanity had proven its worth, not by matching advanced alien capabilities, but by showing the strength in their limitations. Sometimes, she thought, watching a group of Nexulons practicing manual navigation techniques alongside newer human cadets, the best way forward is to remember where you came from. In the quantum core chamber, now rebuilt with both advanced and basic systems working in harmony, a new plaque had been installed. It read, "Progress is not measured by complexity, but by understanding. Sometimes the simplest solution is the most profound." Below it, someone had added a less formal note. When in doubt, ask a human. They're good at doing more with less. Kira smiled. They'd earned their place among the stars, not by becoming more like advanced species, but by showing the galaxy what humanity had known all along. True strength lies not in having every advantage, but in learning to turn your limitations into assets. And that was a lesson worth teaching to the entire galaxy.